Greetings and welcome. I'm PsychicMediumRoberto, and I truly hope you're doing well. I'm blessed to be guided by Spirit. Please hit the bell icon for any new episode alerts, as the season is becoming denser. Trigger warning: the subject matter is of a mature nature and deals with true crime events. Disclaimer: all cases are treated as alleged until proven in a court of law. I'm going to be looking at the Wieambilla Massacre. Please excuse the pronunciation. A very unfortunate situation which occurred in 2022 in Australia, in a remote part of Queensland. And unfortunately, 2 police officers were gunned down, as well as the neighbor to the perpetrators engaged in this gunfight. And 1 other police officer was also injured, and 1 escaped, I would say, by the skinniest of margins, because it was hellfire. If you aren't aware of the story or the case, the officers did a welfare check on a missing persons, visit, and the gentleman that lived on the property had over time become quite radical, including with his brother and his wife. But it turns out when the welfare check was being done, these guys, and I haven't brought their pictures in and their details, I'm not looking at them, people. But short to say, the police officers met hellfire, which resulted in the murders of innocent people. Now, my intention originally for this case was to look at it from a mass event situation, with a particular focus on an ambush against police as a reference. However, and I do acknowledge, there is a gentleman in the US that has been arrested in connection to this, who was believed to be spiking or poking the flames, as it were, who was a radical himself, allegedly. So I'm aware of that person as well. I did look at that person's details, but I opted not to for this reading if I need to go further. But I'm going to focus on the massacre element. However, having meditated on this for a couple of days, I believe I found something. That may have been missed. And all cases are alleged, but I'm just the issue is, once I've seen it, I can't unsee it. Okay. So, with regards to this chart, there are 2 key points here. On the top left here, we see last known contact with estranged ex-wife. So, to give you context, the gentleman that supposedly has been missing, which I believe is a bullshit story, and that's what has irked me about this case. Now, by some reports, I've watched like a video. I mean, it's popping up online at the moment, the conclusion of what happened here, the inquest. But there's something that's I've seen. So, by all accounts, the ex-wife and the gentleman were at loggerheads, were fighting, were not, let's just say, bad divorce, right? Then, so that's in October. So according to her, The last time she saw the ex-husband was on October the 9th, 2022. Then fast forward to December the 4th. She files a missing persons report. Okay. Now let's say on one level, of course, anyone would do that. Perhaps there's responsibilities on that end. I haven't dug deep. But there's one issue for me, and the reason why this, when she makes the missing report, and based on her report, the last time she saw him was October 9. Okay. The issue I'm having with all of this, now if we zoom into the actual day of the event, so we can see it's quite a ghastly day, December the 12th, 2022. Now immediately we see we have a conflict of interest here, right? So we got, let me just give you an example here. Let me explain why this is important. And of course, I've said this in other episodes. There is a conflict here, but let me explain further. So in this light blue block here is how the world sees us. This is what's in the open. Okay. So when we combine numbers, when we get these outcomes, we start with December, which is a 12. December is the 12th month. Gives the outcome 3, right? Now it's on the 12th day as well. So that also has a 12-3. Now because it's within this zone in the day, there is a conflict here. So let's say if it was like this, and I'm just going to do this as an example. Let's say the number was there, for example, and you have a 12-3 here. That is not a conflict of interest. I wouldn't say that's a conflict of interest because the 12-3 here is still to come into play only in this line here, if that makes sense. So the fact that we have it in the same, let's call it, we have the same numbers in the same room. So we've got two people who are in conflict. Now 12.3 speaks about communities and what kind of communities we belong to or groupings, right? Now so there's the first note that there's a problem, right? And we know the outcome was disastrous, right? We also see the mass of sixes. There's too many sixes here. And we even have the hidden 6 as well, right? Now, 6 does speak about gunfire, guns, bullets, anger, aggression. Okay? Now, because it's been labeled as a terrorist event, we found the number 15.6. So 15.6 gives us domestic terrorism, right? So if you ever do charts at mass events, 15.6 is the number which will indicate, of course, it needs to be in a particular position or in a very strong position. And of course, 15.6 being in the middle of the day, there's your domestic terrorism issue. On the other hand, you can also say humans behaving badly, right? So 6 humans, 5, all the bullshit that comes with humans. Now, here's where things turn weird for me. So just picture in your mind for a minute, not necessarily the actual event, because it is, and I haven't watched the body cam footage, I don't know if I will. But I've watched like the reenactments, right? The outcome here for me is problematic. Now, the number for ambush is the number 30. And because of the scale of it, we can see it's not just a 3. Of course, 3 is about control of a situation, but 30 is massive, large. Okay. What I'm having an issue with, so there it makes sense. The outcome for me is problematic, 12-3. And I know this was a terrible, terrible event. But when I look at the numbers, and we'll go further, to have, if you in a firefight, your life is in danger, there's other police now arriving later in the evening, there's a huge standoff, there's lots of police now on site, guns have been fired, people have been murdered, killed, shot, right? It's complete chaos. It's a war zone, right? But the outcome is not right. Now, I've gone through various possibilities why this could have happened. So for me, the outcome's wrong. 12-3 is actually a very soft number. Of course, yes, we have the 21-3, which is, we can say, the 3 imbeciles in the house, right? Who are trapped and find themselves trapped. And even the one police officer, the female police officer that hid in the field for 2 hours for her life, against your will. So the outcome so long story short, if we go to December the 15th, which is our summary day of what transpired on this terrible day here. So we see the 15-6, there's your arseholes, terrorism, domestic terrorism. Right? We see the mass of 6s, so it confirms the big shoot up, lots of bullets, guns going off. Now, here's where the plot thickens. We see in the hidden aspect 27-9. So yes, we can agree there was a level of premeditation, right? So we can say, yes, there's premeditation because they were waiting for them. Okay. And of course, it's murder what took place that day. I'm not disputing that either. So if we are looking for a cult number, let me just point it out. We'll use this unfortunate event that we can learn information from that perhaps predict or understand future events. So here we go. Yeah, 33-6 is your cult number. If you want to call them a cult. But it has that tinge of bullshit. Now, interestingly, we see the 24-6. I'm going to come back to the 33-6. But we see the 24-6 is the family. Right? The family in the house were 2 brothers and a wife. The wife had actually been married to both the brothers. Divorced the one brother, got married to the other brother. And then the other brother. So now, then we see the 15-6, so it confirms the domestic terrorism issue. And I'm having a epiphany right this moment because last night this was bugging me. So the issue is there's two 15-6s here. 15-6 is the domestic terrorism number, right? But again, we have another 15-6 here, and that was bugging me last night. And having confirmed my suspicion, this now makes sense. So here's the reveal. The reason why there's another 15-6 here, and the reason why it bugs me in the first place is, how can, so logically, just if we zoom in here, logically on this, we've got a domestic terrorism issue, yes. Sequence of events, domestic terrorism issue, murder follows. But then there's also a 15-6. We'll get into these other numbers, but 15-6, it's like, it's like they killed themselves, or, beg your pardon for the zoom, the 15-6 bugged me because then it's like bad cops arriving at, this is why it doesn't make sense. This is not the theory. Okay, this is not the theory. But what the number's telling me is a crook killed a crook. Does that make sense? So a badass, or in this case we know it to be the terrorism group, is killed by a terrorism group. Now that for me is odd. And that's what's been bugging me. So I started going a little bit more finite into the numbers, and I believe I've picked up something here. So what this is telling me, I don't believe all the perpetrators have been arrested in this event. So I acknowledge, yes, the 3 perpetrators were taken out on the day. There's a gentleman in the US that's been arrested, yes, I agree. But there's still someone else. So if we go back to 33-6, for all intents and purposes, the case is closed, right? Or ongoing for the US guy. But this is an anomaly for me. So 33-6 also speaks about premeditation. Okay. Yes, they were waiting for them. But this is more than just them premeditating. So when I started getting a bit more finite, we see here December 12, 12 plus 12 conflict. Then I started backtracking to see what is going on here. We note there's a 22-4 there as well. That is a premeditation number. So we start backtracking. The last known contact with estranged ex-wife, as reported by the ex-wife, was this day. We note within the 72-hour window, we see a 10-1, 10-1 conflict. So the conflicts are becoming the theme in this problem. Okay. The number 16-7 is also plays a big role in this situation as well. All right. That's the day she says, okay. But meanwhile, they actually are divorced. So what is the issue? So interestingly, the ex-wife phones December 4. Okay. So now if we look in the 72-hour zone of her call, we see a 22-4 Again, we see that 16-7 in the middle is going to be significant. We note within the 72-hour zone, the day before, there's a 12-3, outcome 3 plus 3, same issue as this day here. Okay. Now, in my opinion, there's no coincidence here. So what is this saying? And here's where I discovered in my opinion, the answer. We note the 12-3-3 conflict, same, matches, the 6s matches, the outcome also is the same. 9 days later, I'm going to discuss it in the upcoming book. 369 gives us reflections of what transpired at this event. But we'll go deep on that on another stage. Okay, what I want to show you now. I'm just going to make this for now. In the 72-hour zone with the XY phones, right? We see this 12-3, and this is what's been bugging me. Okay. The reason why it bugs me is because the outcome on this day is a 12-3-3. That is a feminine fingerprint on the massacre. In my opinion, there is a fingerprint of a woman involved in this crime. Because these guys went through hell, chaos. It was their worst day of their lives, the police officers. And some of them, or one or two of them, had only been on the force for like 8 weeks. So imagine being confronted with rifle fire from a distance. They get taken out while walking up the road. They didn't have a chance. Fortunately, 2 lives were spared. But the outcome is a soft touch. So what has been alluded here? That for me tells me there's more information here. So let me explain myself. The estranged wife phones December the 4th to report a missing persons case. Fair enough. If this reflection day, now remember, she's tapping into the event here, whether she knows it or not. And I believe in this case she knows, 22-4, there's a plan here. Right, so what happens? If this, let's say, the veracity and energy of this sequence of numbers with the outcome this year was on this side of the 72 hours, let's say. So that's before, so past, present, future, right? The fact that this sequence of numbers, which takes place 9 days later, happens before she calls, which means she already has knowledge of the plan, of what these guys' intentions were to do that day, in my opinion. The plan might not have been exactly how it turned out today, on this day, beg your pardon. But the intention was already in play. Does that make sense? The intention of what transpired on that terrible day on the 12th was already a plan. So what happens? If my theory, it needs to be tested by digital fingerprints, footprints, my theory is the ex-wife had a part in this, in that she created the opportunity for the police officers, a need for them to go to this site. Because the gentleman in question is not exactly going to phone the police and say, hey, I think there's some issue here, there's gunfire. Then the police are going to come prepared with guns, right? And he can't exactly phone here and say, well, I'm missing in my own home. So they needed to get there, or create a reason to create the chaos, right? That's my theory. Because if we now zoom into December 4th, and I was looking at this from a completely different perspective. I probably worked on this over 2 sessions before now. So to prove my theory, the day she calls, there's a number 4. Now you see, here's another issue. 4 is male. Okay. All right. 4 is also information, facts. 4 is also instructions. Instructions to do what? File a missing persons report. Premeditated 22-4. Yes, 22-4, 13-4 in the reflection zone. The police, yes, I believe there was, I do acknowledge, there was an additional charge against the gentleman, right? But they would have gone to attend to that already anyway. They just added it because now there was an extra nudge to go there. It's a theory. But there's the premeditation. 16-7 again. This 16-7 has been popping up on this scene at every significant marker. $16-7 is also like an assassination. Eh? You see, I mean, if we want to get finite, right? So here's the 4. Which is related to this 4 there. The outcome 4 there. So if we go finite, because now we in the zone, right? That's information or tip or not tip, information or so-called fact like missing was bullshit. I was meditating. I was going to use this as an example to understand a mass event like this was. But the outcome of the situation alerted me there's more at play here. So I don't know the backstory of who was interviewed or what the inquiry was or what. But the numbers, the outcome here and the numbers there make complete sense. Complete sense. The reflection zone is correct in this case. But the day of the event has a problem. The numbers are not making sense according to what we know of the event. And the number for arrests, by the way, is also 12-3. 12-3. And this is the sickening part, right? So technically, there should have been arrests, but as we know, there were no arrests, right? Which also now, okay, how do I say this? Based on the theory that a tip or a call will be the catalyst for this atrocity, therefore could have been prevented. Which makes the situation even more heinous. So here's the 15-6 who caused the issue, right? But there's another 15-6, and it can include the gentleman in the US. But this event caused the physical action of what then would transpire on December the 12th. So it tells me there's still one or two of them out there somewhere. Does that make sense? There are more out there. And I believe, in my opinion, this day, December 4, was the catalyst that sparked this whole thing. Worth having a look at if there's some Australian crime sleuths out there. What was the digital or phone calls? Because even here, I mean, even if we had to go back even one more day, December the 2nd, there's interaction numbers. Even on the 1st. And this 1910-1, this was premeditated before the day of the event, and the premeditation would have happened pre-December the 3rd even, of what transpired. And the motion, and it was set in motion on December the 4th, in my opinion. Well orchestrated. And unfortunately, good people lost their lives on that day. Mr. Allen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is what I have on this case of a terrible situation. And may the families all be in peace and light. Please leave your comments and thoughts. I do engage with your comments. Please stay safe, stay alert, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.